We've reached the point in our book, Lands Where My Fathers Died, where the author learned where he had to search for his earliest known Stewart relatives. The Latter-day Saints in Salt Lake City, Utah, sent him to Glasgow to look up Thomas Stewart, the man from whom Jack's family can be traced all the way to present day. Chapter 3. Stewarts of Glasgow, 1590 to 1730.
I had been in Scotland long enough to find out that yes, the Stewarts were a big name in this country, and that no, there's not a Stewart living today who is a descendant of the royal Stewart line. Somebody once said, the Stewarts are a race of kings and tinkers. Well, I learned about the kings. Now I wondered, where are my Stewarts, the tinkers? Driving through Scotland gave me first-hand evidence that there is a huge difference between the Highlands in the north and the lowlands in the south of Scotland. With other members of the Stewart Society, I visited two of the great Stewart castles. We were wined and dined at Stirling Castle, one of the most impregnable fortresses in Scotland. This was the royal abode of the House of Stewart during the time of James IV, King of Scotland, Mary, Queen of Scots, and her son, James VI, King of Scotland. Pat and I also toured Edinburgh Castle, another royal residence, situated high on Castle Rock, dominating the city of Edinburgh. But neither of these is in the Highlands. The Highlands are something else. There are wild and romantic tales of the Scottish Highlands, stories of rugged and ruthless clansmen ready to fight at the drop of a claymore. The Highlands are filled with forests, lakes, mountains, picturesque waterfalls, and with people who have a deep sense of pride in being Highlanders. In addition, they have lots of sheep. I know, I saw the sheep. I also knew that my Stewarts were not from the Highlands. I learned that years before when I visited the temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Salt Lake City, Utah. The church is noted for its genealogical library, the largest of its kind in the world. There, library employees helped me find the records they had concerning my family. The originals of these records are preserved in a vault in the mountains near Salt Lake City. I couldn't view the originals, but they walked me through their collection of microfilm from throughout the world. They led me to find my earliest known Stewarts in their files. Thomas Stewart, born in 1590 in Lanarkshire, Scotland, near Glasgow. Scotland's most populous city, now an important industrial center and a major port, is in the lowlands. My Stewarts were lowlanders. So now my next goal, while here in Scotland, was to find all I could about Thomas Stewart, his ancestors and his descendants, where and how they lived in Scotland, and how and why they got around to coming to America. The Stewart Society told me if I wanted to find this type of family records in Scotland, I needed to go to the Scottish Record Office in Edinburgh. The office was located in an imposing building full of old books of births, deaths, marriages, and historic parish records, some hundreds of years old. We spent a whole day there. A staff member gave us basic guidelines on how to use the resources. The instructions included trying to read old handwriting of times and places and dates. It was like learning a new language, even though the language was English. Pat was much better than I was at reading the old script. All of the old records, the originals, are actually housed in this building, but we were allowed to view only the microfilms of them. Reading a 17th century handwritten script from a microfilm reader was a truly daunting task. We found the best resource for us was to use the digital records from the computers in the search room. August 25, 1999, was the day that I found proof that Thomas Stewart was there in the records. There is a stretch of time where records of my family members, from Walter the Third High Steward to my oldest known ancestor, Thomas Stewart, have disappeared and cannot be located. There are numerous reasons why old Scottish records don't exist earlier than the 16th century. Some were lost when the Catholic churches were destroyed during the Protestant Revolution. Some Scottish records were taken to London when the English government became the United Kingdom. Some records were lost due to fires or shipwrecks. Those 300 missing years may never be found. However, Thomas Stewart was there in the Scottish Record Office in Edinburgh, and I hope that from this man, my family of Stewarts can be traced to the present. I would have to do that in the next few days, the only days left before we boarded our plane to return to South Carolina. Thomas Stewart, born in 1590. Both microfilm and computer records in the Scottish Record Office in Edinburgh link Thomas Stewart with the birth of his first child, John. Record 644.1 confirms that Thomas Stewart was the father and Barbara Barnes was the mother of John Stewart. This is confirmed on Scottish Church Records 1.10. Ancestral file records indicate that Thomas Stewart was born in 1590 and married Barbara Burns about 1611, and that Barbara Burns was born in 1592 in Glasgow, Scotland. Thomas was 21 years old and Barbara was 19 when they married. Thomas and Barbara Stewart had 2 children. John Stewart was born in 1612 in Glasgow. The records in Edinburgh spell his first name as John, Jon. John was baptized at the High Church of Glasgow. Margaret Stewart was baptized on October 31, 1622, in Glasgow. The record in the Scottish Record Office is number 644-2, the next to last entry on the page. Margaret, too, was baptized at the High Church of Glasgow. The record includes the names of Margaret's godparents, John Barnes and George Glasgow. The Glasgow that Thomas and Barbara Stewart and their family lived in was far different from the Glasgow of today. That city was small, with a population of about 5,000. There was little commerce due to its location. All of the important commerce in Scotland centered on the capital city of Edinburgh, closer to the eastern seacoast and having close ties to London. Glasgow of 1590 traded mostly with its local neighbors in the southwest corner of Scotland. The importance of the River Clyde was not developed yet, and there was no international trade. Glasgow was at that time an ecclesiastical city. The center of activity was the cathedral at the top of High Street. Residences of bishops and archbishops and other church officials surrounded the church. Local artisans populated the one main street, High Street, from the cathedral down to the Clyde. When Thomas and Barbara Stewart took their children to be baptized, they didn't go to just the nearest parish church. They wanted their babies baptized in the High Church, the Glasgow Cathedral. John was just a few days old on a Monday morning in April 1612 when they went up the hill on High Street to the magnificent stone cathedral that has been standing there on that spot since it was dedicated in 1136. Sir Walter Scott, in his classic novel Rob Roy, described the impressive majesty of this church. That the cathedral was still standing is a miracle itself. All the years after 1560 were turbulent years with political and religious strife dominating their country. Scotland was ruled by King James Stewart VI, whose mother, Mary Queen of Scots, had been beheaded by her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I of England, just 15 years before Thomas Stewart was born. Religious leaders, led by John Knox, had revolted against the Catholic Church in Scotland, resulting in a covenant in 1581 drawn up to suppress the efforts of Roman Catholics to regain their hold on Scotland. The covenant denounced the Pope and the doctrines of the Roman Catholic Church. The years that followed saw many Catholic churches in Scotland destroyed by mobs. During the Scottish Reformation, down the road just 10 miles west of Glasgow Cathedral, the Catholic monks had been forced to leave Paisley Abbey. The monastery was disbanded. The monastic buildings were sold off to individuals. The church was walled off and became the Church of Scotland, Parish Church of Paisley. The Glasgow Cathedral is a good example of how the Protestant Reformation split the country. The church was a Roman Catholic cathedral until 1560, when the nation was torn by an orgy of vandalism that destroyed and defaced many Scottish churches. The Catholic archbishop was forced to leave the city in 1560, but the Glasgow Cathedral continued to operate under the independent Church of Scotland. The ordinary people of Glasgow did not want their church destroyed. They banded together to defend the building against its attackers. The impressive Glasgow Cathedral is one of the few churches in Scotland to survive the Protestant Reformation without being destroyed. Even though Catholic bishops left the cathedral in 1560, the independent Scottish Church continued to provide their own bishops for the next 100 years. Unquestionably, Thomas and Barbara's zeal for their family church superseded any worry about the denomination of the minister who performed the baptism. They loved Glasgow, and they remained faithful to their hometown's largest and oldest church throughout their lives. But I would learn later that they were not the family that I had hoped for.
Next week, we'll hear about John Stewart and his descendants as they lived in Glasgow in the 1600s. This is a period of time when the Scottish Civil War broke out, and it was driven by political and religious divisions. Please come back next week as we continue reading from Lands Where My Fathers Died by Jack Stewart.